There you go. We're live. I just wanted to do a quick Sunday broadcast. My friends, say hello. Um, I was thinking about the scripture, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And the first thing I did when I woke up this morning is as I was waking up, I had this fascination of, like, we're here now in this body and this life, but what makes your fingernails grow and your hair grow? What makes our eyes work? What is this mathematical primordial intelligence that allows us to be? What is the isness? And then I started thinking about God. And then that led me to, as I was waking up, I was like, oh my God, how is a baby created? There's this intelligence that's way beyond what we can understand. So I'm laying in bed next to my wife. She's like, what are you looking up? And there's this TED talk of a man talking about when the sperm enters the egg, and then that fusion happens, and then the cell division from 1 turns into 2, then 4, then 8, and then it's multiplying by 1 million cells a minute nonstop, and this baby starts growing. And what this scientist said was, the math is beyond our comprehension, how by the time a baby is 9 months, there's 65,000 miles of nerve endings and cells and arteries inside of a baby, and not just the ones that are on the outside, but inside, all the way down to this molecular level. How do the cells and how does the DNA have such a mathematical intelligence so they know where to replicate themselves, and to such proficiency without making any error, to the point where, and you keep growing to this full being off of something that was the size of what you could fit 100,000 of on the head of a pin, had all of the mathematical intelligence in the helix of the DNA that he says humans can't even comprehend. The level of complexity of mathematical algorithms is far beyond our comprehension. And then that leads me to, okay, so there must be a higher power, a higher organizing intelligence, and a God, right? And this type of fascination brings me to surrender. My doggies are over there. Surrender to what is. So if you are happy, hear what I just said, you are happy. Are you happy, or are you just the capacity for happiness? When you're angry, are you anger? Are you being angry? Or are you just the vessel that's the capacity for love? Every single emotion on the dynamic bandwidth of emotions that we can experience, we're actually more of just a vessel. The part of us that can't die because it's never been born is the isness that you can objectify and look at, and not be so attached to your anger, but come more into an understanding of that there's an unconditional loving presence that is organized mathematically, that we call God. And to say that there is not this intelligence would be insane. So then that brings me back to this, and back to Jesus. I used to look at people that would have, I don't walk around carrying a Bible. I just happen to have one. My friend Anthony Heyman gave this to me. He's a window cleaning. He's a friend who happens to do window cleaning. And, I don't walk around with this thing. I'm not reading it every day. I read all types of different books. But what I am fascinated about is the parts in here specifically about Jesus. And let me get up. I got these books here. From plusnothing.com. I've been kind of passing these out. These they're like mini Bibles. You can go to plusnothing.com, give them a donation to cover the cost at least, and then they'll send you these things. And I was fascinated about how this guy Jesus, was born of the Virgin Mary, and he walked the planet and he did all these miraculous healings. But more in the fascination was the part where all these people had documented how, while he was carrying a cross up a hill to be crucified, he didn't whine about it. He didn't complain. He wasn't a man-child who was a victim and woe is me. I mean, this was tremendous amounts of suffering and grievously agony, and didn't complain, accepted it, and walked into it and leaned into it and forgave the same exact people that were doing that to him while it was happening. And I keep going back to this, like, if you make the distinguishment between like a maniac and a crazy person, what type of crazy person have you ever heard of had a level of unconditional love that was so high that they loved people so much that they believed that they were dying for our sins? This is insane, dude. So I'm fascinated by it, my friends. My wife is next to me with a doggy on her lap. We're gardening outside. We're getting some plants in the ground. We got to run up to Lowe's and get some more. We ran out of bags of mulch. We're working around the house. Our basement just had a partial flood, so we got an insurance job going on. Our basement is torn up, and we have a lot going on. And you're like busting at the seams. It's so much that you're lucky to get to bed by 1:30 in the morning. And still, with all of that going on, I mean, what a great problem to have. What a great blessing, So surrender. I'm listening to a book right now. It was recommended by my friend Kevin Dubrowski. I got to think of the name of it. It's about surrendering. I'll probably post it in the chat after. But he's talking about this place of infinite surrendering where there was a man. He's telling a story of a man he was talking to, and this guy had gone to all sorts of like personal development, been to retreats. He spent years working on himself, and from Zen to yoga stuff to prayer to meditation, and he still had these anger issues. No matter what, he would have a long day at the office, and then he'd come home, and his children would be jumping around and yelling and fighting, and he would lose his temper and start yelling. He had anger issues or whatever. Now, by no means am I prescribing anything to anybody here. I'm just telling a story of what I was just listening to. And the man also felt bad about that because he would say things in his anger or yell at his children and say things that later he would regret. It's just because he would have these outbursts. And the way he described it was like he was so frustrated. It was like a volcano of anger exploding, and he was have these outbursts. And he finally found out when he looked at it that it was really, he was actually upset because he spent so many years trying to become mature and on his personal development and on his peace that before he would get angry, he would actually feel like he was out of control. He actually felt like a baby himself, like a spiritual baby, and he felt completely out of control and upset that he had no control over himself. And so he felt weak. So the actual the demonstration of anger or strength or this rage, or sometimes when you get really upset, is really stemming from a deeper place of unworthiness. It's stemming from a place of pain and weakness and shame and all these things and vulnerability that you can't believe after all these years of working and trying so hard and developing yourself and your consciousness and becoming peaceful, detached. For a man, maybe the masculine core. For a more primarily a woman would probably be in the state of feminine nurturing. I don't know what that is, but what I mean is, like, how could you still be getting totally upset and losing your temper after all these years? And he felt actually weak, and that's why even when he would have an outburst, his children still didn't listen to him because it was coming from a place of weakness, and they could see that. And so I think that when you get down to the core and you realize that sometimes we do feel inadequate, we feel weak, we feel insecure, we feel afraid, and we feel like we're not good enough, we feel unworthy. So you can be an incredibly successful person who works hard, gets up every morning, does everything you can to be a great person and a good Samaritan, but still feel in moments feelings of complete inadequacy and unworthiness and feel like total crap and feel like you're not good enough and have these emotional outrages of whether maybe you get quiet or maybe you get depressed, maybe you lash out on somebody, maybe you say hurtful things. But if you back up from all that, you realize that you're just the capacity for that. You are the vessel. So you are the capacity. Like, you're not anger or shame or happiness. You are the infinite capacity to contain that in that moment. This is really hard to break through, because you have to hit the peak state of be in the state for the information to receive what I'm saying, for you to get the aha. It doesn't make sense on an intellectual level, but it makes sense on a emotional or spiritual level. So here's the answer. The answer is, it's okay to feel upset. It's okay sometimes to feel unworthy, right? Because you are not unworthiness. It's okay to feel grief. You are not grief. It's when you over-identify with it, and you identify with it, and you say, "Oh, that's what I am. This is my whole life." So we have this, we think in absolutes, where we think that this is all that it is. I can't find the employees that I need ever. My business is never going to take off, or we'll never have this sense of security. So we're always reaching for a place that actually doesn't exist. So we can never get there. But the holistic realization of what I'm talking about is, you can realize that you have it right here, right now. If you allow yourself to just walk into and step into the present moment, that's the name of this Sunday broadcast, you will realize that you are infinite capacity for unconditional love and happiness and gratitude right here and right now. Right now is where life is lived, and you can be totally everything you ever wanted to be. It's right now. So on this walk of mine and on this journey, I think that it was pain, just kind of growing up poor and living in like 32 different homes and not having any stability in my own life. And I remember I was like 22. I had lost my driver's license again, and I was riding a bike to go some dead end grass cutting job for like $11 an hour. And I would ride a bike a couple miles, and I would put the bike on the front of the city bus, and then I would ride the city bus another 10 miles and then get off and ride another 2 miles to work. And I'm sitting on the city bus, exhausted, because I got to get them an extra 2 hours early for work to go do manual labor all day, and then ride a bike anywhere from 12 to 14 miles all the way home every single day. And but I would be sitting on that city bus with my Dr. Wayne Dyer book in total peace, and listening to audiobooks and Eckhart Tolle, and listening to the Bible and all these great books. And I was so broke, but it was one of the happiest times of my life. So even in the midst of suffering, you can find great peace and serenity and happiness, because you work the capacity for it. And there are also people who ride a bus every day, or people that are even homeless, that can have moments of happiness and bliss. A friend of mine, Greg Wittstock, the pond guy. This guy's awesome. He builds ponds for all these celebrities and does all these great things. He sends a mission trip to Africa, and they help. He owns Aquascape, so these water filtration systems for landscapers, and they build crazy ponds, right? And they've helped build these water systems for all of these people in Africa. And when I went to his place it was near Chicago a couple years ago, I was talking to this couple who had actually went on the Africa trip, and they said it changed their whole life. And the craziest thing was, now I'm not qualified what I'm talking about. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of repeating what they said. But they said their mind was blown, because they went there expecting to see suffering, and they were emotionally equipped for this. And when they went there, they saw these little African kids with nothing, but like a village and a stick and some dirt and maybe like a tattered soccer ball, you know what I'm saying? And they said the craziest thing was, some of these kids were so happy and so excited, and they want to show them how they could do the tricks with the soccer ball and this, and they just were in their natural state almost, right? So the reason I made that drastic distinction, or that juxtaposition, is because look at us right now. The poorest people in America have big screen TVs and still have video games, and we have it better than a lot of people around the world. But some of the people that are even in the top 10% in America are suffering the worst. They're literally people in metropolis cities, driving in a brand new Range Rover, and they have all the materialistic things that you could say that you want, but they're suffering unmercifully and sometimes suffering unnecessarily. And so the addiction to suffering happens in your thoughts and in your mind. You embody it, and it becomes a pathology, which turns into this neurosis, and then you become neurotic. So some of the more successful people are the most neurotic, and they suffer the hardest and the most. And it might be stemming from deep feelings of competition or unworthiness, or feeling like if they don't work themselves to death, that they're not worthy. Now, what type of success is that? And what does that leave your soul at the end of the day? And when you die and pass on, working your guts out to battle against this feeling of unworthiness, yet to completely miss your mark, to miss the mission and mandate and the spiritual meaning of your life, is not success at all. It's actually failure. It's really failure. And I used to get angry about this topic. I was at a point a few years ago when I was, after working many years and you still don't have any money, you can get really upset and vindictive. And that's where I was a few years ago. And I would say, I don't care if I miss the mission for my life. I don't care about any of that. I just want money. I want to figure out how to make money, because without money, like I was in a dark place, right? And I mean, I can logically look back and see why that was, but it wasn't until I think it was like 2018, I had this big epiphany. I went through this nervous breakdown. I'm sorry. It was like a total depressive. I was depressed for like 4 months in 2017, 4 to 6 months. And when I came out of that depression, I realized that that's why I became so depressed, is because my priorities were effed up. God first, then your family. Then, they say put God first. And for somebody who doesn't really understand what that means, because maybe you haven't experienced the suffering in a way, what happens when you don't put God first, or at least spirit first, it can cause a tremendous amount of suffering. So I learned my lesson, and I reoriented my priorities, and my life has been way smoother. And the success that I was looking for, and the increase in finances all came. It seems so counterintuitive to the carnal mind. But the counter mind, what happened? My wife's next to me going like this. The dog farted again.
Oh, he's killing me.
Gino.
Whoa, do you smell it?
I don't smell it yet, but I'm about to. We have this puppy, Gino, and he keeps ripping them and farting, and it's bad. We'll be sitting on the couch at night trying to hang out, and he'll fart, and we'll jumping up, turning on the ceiling fans. I don't smell it. How do you smell it?
Well, because he's farting directly.
Do you want me to turn on the camera so everyone can see you?
No.
Sorry.
Sorry, guys.
All right.
I'm having a lazy day.
So it seems counterintuitive to the carnal mind, because the carnal mind is an enmity against God. Back to what I was saying before. How is a baby created from this little speck and grows into you? It's an intelligence that you can't, it's irrefutable. And yet you still don't know how it works. You can't control it. There's so many things you can't control. You can't control how the trees grow. You can't control if a storm comes. You can cry and pout and get upset and be mad that things aren't going your way or how you expected them to be. But when you just surrender and move into a place of the present moment and acceptance now, and just take responsibility, life takes on a whole new magic, a whole new meaning, and you can experience true fulfillment for the first time in your life, maybe today, right now. The ego will fight it and resist it. And what you resist persists. What the ego resists persists. And that's what ego means, EGO, edging God out. That's what it is. Where are you edging God out in your life? For some of you, I feel that the ego is still fighting that. And like Eckhart Tolle says, you will be dragged into the kingdom of heaven, kicking and screaming, if that's what it takes. And he said, if you want more time is what you will get before you're ready to step into this. There's an endless abyss of time. So if you worry and whine and complain, whether others or to yourself, it will just create more of that and more and more and more of that. And it becomes an entire thought world. And then you live in that. So the answer isn't to say, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And fight and battle against and try to fix yourself. What if it was it's about surrendering and letting go? I always think about the said this before, the beach ball. Imagine if you're in a pool and you're holding a beach ball underneath the water, and you're holding it down, and then like finally you get tired of holding this beach ball under the water and you let go. What happens to the beach ball? It pops up to the top and floats on top of the water. Why? Because that's its natural state. What if your natural state, which God intended you to have or be, was to be buoyant and free and present and happy and blissful? How would the internal systems in your body and the network of your nervous system reorient itself and work if you were in a place of fulfillment and your chakras were lined up and you were in a place of gratitude, breathing, and just allowing the fulfillment of what is to flow into your life and just be? Think about that. What are you holding on to anyways? See, the ego likes to hide in the dark, and when you shine a light on it, it runs. If you tell somebody who's holding an identity of, oh, it's okay. If somebody has an identity that they are suffering, they've made an identity and an addiction to their problems. Anybody here have anybody in their life? I see all your comments, by the way. I'm just riffing right now. What's up, Tony Forbes, Daniel Tuff, Jeffrey Bell, David Dixon, Joseph Sanchez, Anthony Gargo, Wild West, Motorcycle is Life, Christy Wright, The Dane, Brandon Shelley, Caleb, Eduardo, Nancy, Austin, Jay, Corey. So yeah, that's what I was saying. What if the ego hides in the dark, and when you shine a light on it, it runs? Think about this. Tony Robbins had this metaphor once. He was talking to someone that felt like they were holding on to a rope, and they're hanging from the edge of a rope, like, oh my God, I'm hanging on for my life. And really, your feet are just that far from the ground. He's like, well, why don't you just let that thing go and just come over here? Right? This is a huge thing. Like there's something called sunken cost. Remember the Concorde jet, the airliner in Europe? It was this crazy, beautiful looking bird looking jet with this like pointy nose, and it went like, I don't know, Mach 2 or something. And it was like, so they sank millions of dollars into this plane. And I think through the 80s and 90s or something. And by the time it wasn't making any money, it was a failing project. They kept sinking more money, and not like the European government got into it and started investing money in like. Then they had this meeting again after a few years, and they've spent billions of dollars. Like, we have to scrap this project. It ain't going to work. The production cost of this plane is too high or something. And they kept going like another 5 years. And after they spent billions of dollars, when they finally were forced to let this project go, it took them years to realize that the only reason that they kept going is because they had so much time and energy and money sunk into it, that they felt like they had so much momentum that they couldn't stop. And it's one of those things. It's like, imagine if you have an anchor and you're dragging it in the dirt, and it's just like, you're like, just let it go. Just let it go. You're like, but I can't. I've been dragging this anchor for like, 200 miles for like 10 years. I can't let this thing go. No, you can. You can just let it go. So the ego has this addictive type of story. It's if you think about learn about enneagrams, and I can go down the rabbit hole with this, but we build this biology of belief, this belief system that it's impossible to let something go because we have built an identity around it. So I'm asking you, how do you upgrade your identity? Can you upgrade your identity? Like, I was literally just driving home. I was running some errands this morning, getting my hair cut, and I'm driving back to the same street that leads to my subdivision. And there's trees, there's cars. Well, when you drive home on the street that you drive every day, you don't notice anything except for the thoughts going in your head, and you're thinking about all the stuff you have to get done, and fail to witness how beautiful nature is, because it's the law of familiarity. When you go out of town, my wife and I have been all over the country because like my YouTube channel, and I speak around the country. And so I'm actually speaking in Nashville in August. If you'd like to come to the huge convention, I'll talk about that later. But keithkalfas.com/resources. You can, if you want to come. So my we've been like Kentucky and ATL and stuff like that. And I remember we were driving through Kentucky one time, all over the country, but Kentucky specifically. We took this like scenic route, and there was these roads, this beautiful paved road. It's totally smooth with white fences on each side and beautiful trees blossoming and like explosions of colors. And they were like, it was like a tunnel and hillsides. And we were like, whoa. As we were driving, it felt like, goosebumps just from how beautiful God's nature is. And it was mind blowing. But there are people that live on that street that drive that every single day to and from work, and they don't think that like at all. It's just like somebody that lives right by the ocean, and you go to the ocean, and you're like, oh my God, what is it like to live by the ocean? I've actually asked people this when we went to Florida or LA. Oh, I actually haven't been to the ocean in 3 years. I'm like, you live a mile away. Yeah, I'm just busy. I haven't been there in 3 years. So what I mean is, how can you, like the great poet Rumi, he said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. Let go of all your cleverness and all your thoughts and our labels and our opinions of everything, and just become engulfed in this vast amount of beautiful nature and intelligence all around us, as though you're seeing the world through new eyes. Through new eyes. How would you look? George Carlin, the comedian, he says, you ever look at a cat, how they blink? He says, they look like they're testing new eyes. I'm excited about that. I'm a fan of George Carlin. I guess on HBO Max, they just released a documentary where all these comedians are talking about how he's affected the comedy world. I want to see that with my wife. But so look at the world through new eyes. This is a huge, huge challenge for me, because we have so many triggers and so many neuroassociative anchors that trigger us to open up that file and just start playing a script. And there's tens of thousands of these scripts, and they're all overlapping, from happiness to pain to suffering. And we've built this entire construct of what our reality is, and we view it through these archetypes and through these everything we see is through the lens of the reality that we've built inside of us. So it's a complete delusion. We live in this delusion, and we're operating over the top of all of this delusion. It's insane. So anyways, that's what I like. One more time, I want to go back to Jesus. He brought the new law form, the New Testament. And when the Pharisees and scribes and the religious people of the day would say things to him to try to get him to stick his foot in his mouth, he would just say these amazing, profound things that would make them drop their mouths. And they'd be like, I don't know what to say. And he would say things like, I am in this world, but I'm not of it. He was outside of the jurisdiction of the world of sophistry and casuistry of Roman civil law and all these things. He was at a totally higher dimension. I like to talk about like quantum physics and fifth and sixth density consciousness. He was like in 5D or something, yet walking around in a physical body where none of the confines or the belief systems of the time could. It was almost like he was like an alien or something. in a way he was. I'm not qualified to say anything because it doesn't say anything about here, but that's the fascination that I'm having, is when you dive into the word and you learn about this stuff, you start to have these epiphanies, and these dots start connecting up here. Like there's a sub communication when you read the Bible or you pray, that it plants seeds up here that come down into the manifest, into your thoughts and into your life and into your reality that you can't describe. It's a different level of intelligence. So yeah, dog. I see all your comments. Here, I'll give you one little. There you go. Oh.
Oh, I'm just sitting here like all like slouchy wouchy.
I just did one little flash of the studio.
Mm.
Want another one? So I think that's it. We're going up to Lowe's. We need 5 more bags of mulch. What else do we need? I think we're good. We got to feed the doggies. And got a lot of work to do. Have yourself an amazing Sunday. Later.